Today is October 3rd, and 80 years ago today, the crew of the Five Grand, at least the crew known by the Five Grand, conducted a bombing mission in Nurnberg, Germany. And they were annotated and listed as the lead plane. Although the account of Sergeant McBride contends with this, we'll talk about that. But before we talk about Nuremberg, I want to jump back to our last post, the 26th September, the Bremen bombing mission. One of our viewers shared that their mother actually was living there near those railroad tracks, and at the time, and that her house had actually gotten a hole in the roof from it as a result of the bombings. So incredible to hear that. I'm going to see if I can't get more details about that story, possibly get it linked into that post so that you can see more of those videos. But that's an incredible story. You have to remember, all these bombing missions were carpet bombing. And while ideally they were trying to hit military targets, the fact of the matter is that was not always the case. And missing targets happened. People got hurt, innocent civilians did. And that's partly why we really don't do carpet bombing anymore. And technology is better. We can do well-targeted bombings. Better to hit your target than just to hit around it. So as at least for the United States is concerned, we don't really carpet bomb at all. I'm willing for people to contest that and give examples. I'm sure there are possible examples, but that is not really the typical MO. But yeah, really incredible. Would love to hear more about that story. Jumping back to October 3rd, Nuremberg. So as a reminder, flight crews would cross the English Channel from a couple of different locations, but they'd cross over and make their way down into Germany. And today, we're coming all the way down here to Nuremberg. I'll bring that up after. So let's go to the account first, and I'll share a little bit more of history after. Nuremberg, Germany. We got out of bed at 2:45 for a 3:30 briefing, where we learned the target was to be Giebelstadt. But when the formation did fly over it, the bomb racks on the lead plane wouldn't work, so we all had to fly to the secondary target. So now, I'm gonna pause real quick. At this point, you can see they were not the lead plane. It was a different plane that was the lead plane. It is very possible that their plane took lead at this point, and Sergeant McBride simply did not account for that. And that's why they got the credit for being a lead plane. But at least for this first portion of the mission, they were not the lead plane. It was completely covered by clouds, so the bombs had to be dropped by PFF. And we're going to talk about PFF in a minute, which gave us no idea how our results were. Our target was a Me-262 jet propulsion airplane field. A piece of flak hit our number one propeller, but the only damage was a slight nick in the blade. I helped boys throw chaff out of the chute. We've talked about chaff before. That's that small strips of metal, aluminum usually, varying sizes that would mess with radar, make radar think there were planes in one area when they weren't. I helped boys throw chaff out of the chute on the bomb run, so didn't get the chance to see where the bombs fell or the amount of damage they produced. We were on oxygen about 8 hours since we went to 19,000 feet. Now, keep in mind, at 19,000, way up there, it tends to get very, very cold. These planes had open windows, especially waist gunners like Sergeant McBride, where that was his primary position. He's sitting there looking out an open window. Very, very cold. We went to 19,000 feet to form and did not let down until we crossed the English Channel on the way back. It was negative 36 degrees at 26,000, yet none of us were cold. There was light flak, but no enemy fighters were seen thanks to our P-51 and 47 protection. So yeah, it's very, very cold at those temperatures. So the two things I'm going to share with you will first be the PFF. There it is, dropped by PFF. I don't know that I've talked about this before, but PFF was a form of radar. Now, this is going to come from the 398th.org. It's the 398th Bomb Group Memorial Association. This comes from their website to help explain what PFF is. I'm just going to read the highlighted portion right now. The British scientists developed the initial use of radio detection and ranging, or radar, for airborne use. American scientists added their skills and knowledge to further improve the bombing techniques to help attain a reasonable degree of accuracy. The end result of the combined effort of the scientists was initially known as BTO, or bombing through the overcast. So it was a way of seeing through the clouds without actually seeing through the clouds, and eventually referred to under the code named Mikey, PFF Pathfinder Force. So that's what that is. It is a form of radar that allowed the pilots to see through the clouds and get presumably a greater degree of accuracy within their bombing despite having no visuals. Now, the other thing I want to share with you is, again, I'm going to start sharing periodically pieces of history. These were my grandfather's flight gloves. You know, they were long sleeved gloves, and it's really incredible. This particular one, actually this one in particular, actually has the date written on it when it was manufactured. And if you look real closely, you can see it says 1940 there at the bottom. It really amazes me. This is over 80 years old. The leather is still flexible and soft. And there's starting to become some damage and rusting to the actual zipper, but the zipper mechanism itself, you know, is still incredibly intact. It actually never occurred to me because I never looked closely enough at these before, but both of his gloves are actually different. You can see a little bit the difference of the wrinkles of the one versus the other, and this one also is unique. The stitch patterns on the inside that stitch the inside and fold it out, whereas this one actually on the fingers has the stitching, maybe it's a double stitch on the outside. So it's really kind of interesting. There's two different gloves. They're basically the same, but different wrinkle patterns. There's no date on the inside of this one. You know, and sometimes that's just the way it fell for when you'd get equipment issued to you. You didn't always have exact matching sets, even from necessarily same manufacturers, although both of these are from AM. I don't know what AM is. Haven't looked that up yet. I don't know if anyone's familiar with military contracts and clothing. Be interesting to hear more about that. But wearing these, and they're fairly small for me. My grandfather was smaller than me. He was a little guy, but I can kind of get my hands into it. Really doesn't fit quite right though. But I'm sure that these were worn quite often as a result of the cold. Anyway, that's it for today. Our next update will come on the 9th of October. I'm going to go to Mainz, Germany.